cinema history of cinema.
Cinema history is really, really good.
I'm just obsessed with film, dude.
We are. Okay.
They would call us a cinephile. I love that.
And with that, welcome back to another episode of Small Talk Tuesday. I am your host, Jennifer Razon. With me again is the amazingly awesome...
Still got it in there.
Yep. Ian Hawk McLeod.
What to do? I'm here.
You're here.
I'm here, everybody. I'm not sure what we're talking about, but I'm sure I have opinions held loosely. We'll see.
Your opinions are valued.
My bad. We'll see.
What do you mean we'll see?
You know, I mean, my opinions are held lightly, but I don't know. Sometimes I think my opinions are just factual. So, you know, I mean, you want an opinion about something, it's this or that. For me, it's sometimes it's just like, I don't want to give you an opinion. Yeah. I want to give you informed perspective.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Ian and I, actually, we went to college together many years ago.
Film school.
And we've actually been working in the entertainment industry, you know, for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah. I mean, it just sound old though when you do it that way.
I know, I'm sorry.
But no, for 2 decades.
2 decades.
I've been contributing to the, I don't know, whatever the thing is.
And, you know, through our experiences in the last 20 years, we've pretty much have been through all of it, really, if you think about it, from the ground up, starting from the measly receptionist / runner / get your coffee here, sir positions to being the higher ups, if you put it that way. So
I mean, fun fact is that I didn't do a lot of PAing. I wasn't a production assistant I didn't do it very often. Do you know why?
Why?
Because the chair of our department, Robert, and I forget his last name, he basically was like, you know, when you go in the industry, be careful on the role that you come into the industry because you will get pigeonholed. And I understood that because there was a girl with school named Rebecca. I'm keeping all the last names out. But she became a script supervisor. And it was like, wow, she got a job in the industry like right away. Because me, I was like, if I'm not going in as a director or writer, I'm out. So you see me at the California Peachy Kitchen going, hi, what can I get for you? You know, that's the choice of not being pigeonholed. But sure enough, I think she wanted to be a writer-director, but probably still script supervising. Meaning it's really tough. Like, whenever you go into the industry, if you're a sound technician, and they go, hey, you're a sound technician, then I would say Ian's a sound technician. I'm like, yeah, I want to direct. You know, I wrote the scripts. It's like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
But you a sound technician, so just be a sound technician, you know?
We pretty much held every other position in terms of crewage.
But on the other side, yeah, I wasn't a professional PA in the industry, but I have done every single job on set. All of them. Catering, PA, producer, sound, transpo, grip, lighting, DP.
I've never done transpo. That's the only one I think in any production that I've worked on. I never done transpo.
Yeah, I drew in 2005. I went back to New York because my friend Joseph was making a movie, indie film. I was going to school at Columbia. And I said, yeah, I'll produce. And he says, can you do transportation? I said, yeah, sure. So he rented a van. And I remember we were in Chinatown and we were stealing shots, obviously guerrilla style. And he's like, go around the corner. I went around. I side-swapped another car. Am I going to get arrested for that?
Nah.
No, but that was long ago. It's past the time of... It's
statute of limitations is gone.
Exactly. Exactly. It's been 20 years. So, but yeah, I've done every job. Fun fact, we did a shoot 2 years ago, I think. And I was doing the production audio because for me, I was telling someone this recently, like for me, film, although we came up thinking of the tour, the film directors like, you know, Wes Anderson or Stanley Kubrick or David Fincher, where they really have their thumbprint on every frame, that they're known as the auteur, meaning like it's all from this one person. But the truth of what we do is all in collaboration. The power of collaboration is the massive power of all art, is our ability to take our skill sets and become one to tell a story. And I think we've done that for a long time. And so I realized recently, I was like, yeah, I've done every job. I was telling somebody, I've done every job. And they're like, you do audio? I said, it's not that I do audio. I've done audio because I understand that as a director, or at least as executive producer or producer, I literally cannot hire every job unless I know what every job is.
Right.
So what makes a good producer as a producer is you bring in the best collaborators in each department. Mm-hmm. But on the set that we had 2 years ago, the budget was limited. The audio options were not great. So it's like, I'll pick up the boom pole. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. And it worked out to our benefit.
Yeah, because I'm tall. So I get real nice reach right on that boom pole, right? Yeah. And the good thing is I could put the pole on my head just like that.
Just rest
it right on my head.
I remember that.
Yeah. You were there. Witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's all comfy over there. He was like holding it in one hand.
Yeah. And I was just my daughter is in high school and she made a film the last 2 days. And I was a cinematographer and her mom was the actress in it. And I thought, this is it. It's really this idea that we have to tell a story. And some people want to be the actor, some want to be the director, but we have to work together. It's only possible if we do it together.
Right. Exactly. It's like one of those things like with me too, is like, I kind of got thrusted into all these other positions, but it was good to know how to do them to fully understand, how to put how the production was going to be encompassed.
Right. Because let's just say you're a cinematographer, you're a director of photography. They're in charge of camera. Mm. And a lot of people, some people know, some don't. But, there's two departments that work with camera. That's the camera department. And then the electric, the lights. And so although I took lighting classes at Art Center College of Design, I wasn't great at it. I typically just overlit or whatever. My idea, though, is if I'm on set and I don't like the lighting, I have to speak the language of the gaffer and the best boy. I have to be able to say, like, if the DP is working on the track, fixing, their Chapman or whatever, that I can go, hey, this light just seems like it's too hot, or can we bring a flag in? Can we, you have to be able to speak the language that they can understand. And that's the power of being the power, not so much a power, but like, it's a privilege, but it's also the necessity of being a director is being able to speak the language of everybody.
Right.
And that's just not on set. It's like a post-production, sound design, Foley, sound mixers.
But here's one thing that, because before going back into kind of the freelance world, I was a post-producer for some time before I went out. You would not believe some of these directors that come into the post house. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, well, because most people think that they're separate departments. Like this idea, they are separate departments. There's production, there's post-production.
Right. But the thing is, like, if you're especially going to be in those higher up positions where you're kind of the main person that they're looking for instruction to, you have to know how all these departments have to work, at least to some degree.
Well, if you're a director and you work in production, the truth is we are shooting for edit.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, whatever I'm doing on set is because our editor, typically Aaron, right? If he's editing, I have to think like Aaron when I'm on set. Right. I often think like, will Aaron think this is enough coverage? Or is he going to be like, why didn't you get that shot? It's not that I'm paranoid about what the editor thinks. Mm-hmm. But I have to think about, like, if we're making a pizza, like, we're shooting is like the dough and putting the cheese on it, and then post-production putting it in the oven.
Right.
I have to be cognizant of the heat of the oven and all those things, the elements. It would be deemed complicated, but I think because we've been doing it for 2 decades, I think for me, it's fun. It's like paintbrushes and, toolkit.
And it's funny because this one story popped up, not naming names here, because I've actually worked.
You don't want to name drop here?
No, I've actually worked on some pretty big productions, but this particular one production I worked on, the director, and it's one of those things where how our group gels really well, and we kind of move in a cohesive way where it's like we could communicate minimally and know exactly what we're gonna want.
Right.
I've actually had experiences where I worked on productions where there wasn't really much gelling per se. It's like the DP and the director would be in opposite ends, butting heads. And it's one of those things that they'll say one thing to me and to our, to the people I'm supervising, like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I want. And then the DP will come in and be like, well, this is not what we talked about, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, what did you guys talk about before you shot this? It's like, you got to find that balance somewhere.
Well, I mean, part of making production super clean is that pre-production is really essential. I mean, all the work of production is done in pre-pro, but what I think you're saying about the chemistry is the idea that, yeah, we have a crew of 7 that we shoot every time with, but that's by design. That's me shooting with many DPs that were like, I say, let's do this thing. I don't know, like, dude, like, can we try it at least? I'm the director. I'm telling you, like, can we do this thing?
Yeah.
It's like, so there's that idea of collaboration that's tell you, it's kind of like with improvisation. It's like the idea of saying yes or no, but the idea is that when you're in collaboration, you want everyone to at least make an effort to work together. And so I think to your point, like a lot of sets, because they would say in Hollywood, above the line, below the line, there's a lot of ego running the ship. Yeah. That's pretty normal. But it's also, I think the ideas don't just come from the top. I think a lot of the very essential ideas is like when someone's is a gaffer, and they go, "Hey, yeah," they tell me something that's happening on set or on location. They go, "Hey, we found this thing." And I go, "Oh, we'll shoot it there. Maybe that's the establishing shot." And then we move, or that we're gonna end up there. That wasn't me coming up with that idea. Right. It was someone on the crew saying, "Hey, look at this thing." He's just sharing or something. That you have to be open to the magic. Otherwise, I mean, have you ever shot everything you script stuff, you direct it, you edit it. It's like a filmmaker like Barry Jenkins. He did Moonlight. His whole thing, like I studied him way, years before he got to the level. He always say, like, when you're making a movie, you're making it 3 times. It's like when you write the movie, and then you go out and you start shooting it. It's a totally different movie in a way. And then when you post production, you're editing it. It's a different movie too. So like in the way, we have to embrace the fact that what we see in our mind and what we shoot in our heart doesn't always align.
What's going to be in the scene
with what happens, right? What unfolds in that moment. And that's the magic of cinema, where it's like we had all these plans, and then this happened, and that was the moment.
And the thing is that, it's never going to be exactly what we always envisioned. I mean, when I was doing my short films back then, it's like, I had all these visions of certain things, but then I had to compromise and going, okay, it's close enough to where I want it to be. It's more than enough.
Don't you think it's everything? You just said something very profound, though. It's like, maybe all art, but especially in filmmaking, it's a lot of compromise. Yeah. It's a lot about boundaries. You have this vision, and then the budget says, well, this is how much you can do. And then your job is to figure out how to tell the same story at the same moment, but less. Exactly. Less what? Less everything. Mm-hmm. It's a compromise.
It is. A lot of it is a compromise. And as much as you fight tooth and nail for it, and then you realize, like, you come to your senses and going, okay, yeah, we got to be more practical about it.
When did you know you wanted to be in the industry? Like, you were like, hey, I'm very curious about this film thing, this idea of...
I remember exactly. It's 1994.
Dang, you know exactly when?
Yeah. I was watching the movie Little Women.
Mm-hmm. Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder is one of my favorite movies. I love the music in that
Susan
one, too.
Sarandon in that?
Yeah.
So hot.
She played the mom. I also had like...
That was weird. I was like... Susan Sarandon's so hot. She played the mom. Actually, that's kind of weird, but yeah, everyone knows she's very attractive.
Yeah, attractive woman. It was one of those things that's when I really got into movies, because I used to watch it like before, but mostly like kid stuff. So around that time, I started watching more movies geared towards like historical dramas or like more dramas and stuff like that I wouldn't necessarily have watched, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like this is, I want to tell stories. I enjoyed telling stories when I was younger, and I just didn't know how. And then I started watching more movies here and there. And that's when my love for movies started coming out. My mom actually thought I was going to be a musician.
Why?
Because I love music a lot.
Do you play an instrument?
I do.
What?
Piano and guitar.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I haven't played constantly throughout the years. It's been on and off. So I've been.
But anytime you can step up and start playing the keys of some sort.
Somewhat.
To me, it's just black and white.
Yeah.
Bam, bam. You can do it.
Once I have like the muscle memory back, then it comes back. But yeah.
Are you inviting me to play on my drums right now in the studio?
Almost, yeah. You can do it? You can do it?
Yeah, that's cool that you knew so early. I think my daughter actually is become more curious about film watching Little Women directed by Greta Gerwig. And so you see the full circle.
Full circle on that's pretty awesome.
But I think it's also about the empowerment of this from a perspective of, not myself.
You can tell Kaya that my first foray into.
Yeah, she'll listen to this. And I think it's curious. The idea, though, is I think it's about, the world has always been very male dominated, obviously. But I think that, I feel deeply that women have the wonderful truths and wisdom of the world, and they're the ones that bring us into the world. And so I think filmmakers, especially female filmmakers, although I think filmmakers across the board it's just storytellers, that it's always inspiring to see someone like Greta Gerwig or seeing somebody who can pick up the baton and tell stories that, young ladies like my daughter can watch.
Yeah.
And see themselves. Yeah.
My first experience actually with the female director was Jane Campion. The Piano.
Yeah.
That was an amazing movie. I loved it a lot. And then it was I don't want to say Catherine Hardwicke, but it was the other Catherine. Shoot.
I got it. Hold on. I know which one you're talking about. Bigelow, right?
Bigelow, yes.
Yeah. I was going to say right there, I was like, my brothers and I watched obsessively Point Break with Keanu Reeves and the beloved Patrick Swayze. And we were always like, oh my gosh, this sequence where, Johnny Utah, he's like, freeze. And then he sees Bodhi, that they're running from a thing, and he chases him. And they go through the back, in Los Angeles, they go over this fence, they go through this house. And then one time, Patrick Swayze picks up the pit bull and throws it on to Keanu Reeves, who plays Johnny Utah. And you see, it's going through, right? And we're just like, this movie is so rad. And then years later, we're like, that was directed by Catherine Bigelow, who did The Hurt Locker and Dark 030. We're like, that was directed by a girl, like when we were younger. Like a woman directed that?
She wrote Strange Days.
She's unbelievable, right? Yeah. But that just sounds like, oh, she's a good director for a woman. Like, no, she's a great filmmaker.
She understands what it is.
She knows what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't go into the drama that she was married to James Cameron and all those other things.
Yeah, but she knows how.
She knows what's up.
Yeah. And those two women were kind of like my tipping point of like, okay, I could do this.
I can do this.
Yeah. Because most of the films we used to watch when we were younger were all by men.
Dudes.
Nerdy
dudes that have fantasies of telling stories.
Yeah, and then you realize, that women can tell stories too. It's like, yes, we can.
Well, it's not even that. I think they tell the best stories, in my opinion. But what do I know?
We do.
They do.
We do.
You do. I think, for me, growing up, my two brothers, I was the middle brother of three, but more growing up in a desert town outside, I'm going to shout it out right now. Victorville. Yeah, I'm from Victorville. That says it all, doesn't it? People are like, where's Victorville? I'm like, don't worry. I think my parents couldn't afford to buy a home in Orange County. They were driving to Las Vegas, got a flat tire, and bought a house. And I was 7 years old. There's three things I do really well, Jen. One, I play billiards, pool, pretty good at that. Really good at bowling, and really good at maybe movies, because that's what you do in the desert. When it's 105 degrees outside, what do? You go inside.
Movie theater.
Yeah, so sitting in the dark in the movie theater, because we had $1 theater. Ooh. Basically, when there was a movie theater and the movies were done there, it was down on 7th Street where they had like a movie theater that only cost $1. And so my mom would take my friend Mark, and he's Filipino as well. And both of us would get dropped off in the summertime at noon or like 11 before the movie started. We go across the street to Taco Bell. And we'd eat Taco Bell for a couple bucks and go into the movie. But then we were so broke, we snuck into other movies. So the idea is that you would buy a movie for $1,
and then once the credits roll, you kind of sneak
and then you
into
swap into another one.
See,
I think one day we saw 3 movies.
That's what I almost miss about the old time theaters.
Old times,
like,
yeah. 3 movies in a day.
Do that.
3 movies in a day. And so when it's 100 degrees outside and it's AC in the dark, you become really accustomed. Like, I love going to the movies and sitting in the dark.
Well, wait, side note, do you like going to the movie? Some people are like kind of half and half on this. I like going to the movies by myself.
I do love going to the movies by myself. Actually, when I'm feeling sad or down, I'm going to the movies by myself. I just went to see American Fiction.
Ooh, I have
Jeffrey
to see that
Wright.
one
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. A lot of people are giving it meh. I'm like, no, it's great. Tracy Ellis Ross has a great cameo. Jeffrey Wright's amazing. But that's the other thing about, going to movies by myself. My thing is like, I'm obsessed about taking my kids to go to the movie theater in general. We go at least once, we go often because to me, watching a movie in my home is very convenient. Mm-hmm. But watching movies on phones or tablets or laptops or on your TV, to me, it's only it's like a version of the film.
Yeah.
But it's not full impact because you're so distracted. And if you know what I mean, you have your phone, you have all the things, you have your but in the movie theater, it's like turn your phones off. It's like you really are supposed to be engaged
and pay attention to it
with the art because it's art.
I do remember growing up. My Mama Jay and I used to go to the movies every weekend.
Wow!
Every Saturday and Sunday we go watch a movie.
Yeah, it's bonding, right?
It's bonding, but also it's one of my favorite times. Also,
oh, you probably remember all of it.
I do.
I mean, I hope that it's like.
And the funny thing is, I still have my ticket stubs from back then.
You do? Me too.
I have a little keepsake box with all my ticket stubs.
So does that make us sentimental or hoarders?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I think a little bit of both.
A little bit of both?
Yeah.
What if I'm just like maybe what the categorical part is? I'm a sentimental hoarder. I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a thing, but I think I just made it a thing.
I don't know. If you're watching this, comments.
Tell me if I'm a sentimental hoarder. Yeah. My son's giving me a thumbs up. Like, yeah, you're a sentimental hoarder. It's not like I have your umbilical cord from your birth, but I do have like, your first footprint, your bracelet.
Those are sentimental stuff.
Yeah. So my son's looking at me. We were like, umbilical cord? What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm obsessed with cinema because I think it's really, it's funny. It's only, I think Christopher Nolan is, really talked about it, right? To me, he's an auteur in many ways. Christopher Nolan has proved himself over time. Mm-hmm. When we saw Memento come out, we thought, oh, this is different. Maybe it's and then it kept going and going and going and going. But I've worked with crew members that work with Christopher Nolan, and they tell me all the stories like behind the scenes. And I'm just like, wow. That there's these filmmakers who they're masters of what they do. And I think that's where I start to look at film is like, it's only a couple 100 years old. It's not that old. Right. But we're already at this point we're doing, they call them refresh, but they're remakes. Like you shouldn't reboots. You wouldn't remake Willy Wonka, but you did. You shouldn't really remake Point Break, but you did. Right. You shouldn't remake Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, but you did.
Wait, did it?
They did. MGM and it failed. Oh. But the point is,
that's why I haven't hear it.
Exactly. But they're remaking stuff because they don't have good ideas, and they're so lazy that they rather take something that was proven in the market 10 or 20 years ago and try to reboot it for the audience, the children of the audience.
They just released Roadhouse with.
It's like with Jake Gyllenhaal, right? So the thing is like that's cool. But the idea is like there's so many stories to be told.
There are.
But the thing is they're not so interested in that.
No.
Because they're trying to fill it's tech companies that run it. Here I go. I start ranting. Yeah. Should I not rant? I'll stop.
No, good.
This is not small talk though. My son is, he hears these. So when people pick up their kids from school or they take them to school, they're like, "How was your day, Bobby?" "Oh yeah. How'd your test go?" "It was good." I'm all like, I'll start ranting about movies and cinema.
The thing is, like, I think you and I agree on is like, there are so many stories out there that are not within that mold that the industry has already is trying to push out.
Did you want me to just get into it?
Do it.
All right, I'm gonna get into it. All right, here we go. So we have to go back to like cinema to me is like they think they've run out of ideas, but it's more because they continue to shoot themselves in the foot, and I'm saying us over the last 200 years, because before it was silent pictures,
right?
And what happened with silent pictures is that you had these great, amazing filmmakers who were doing amazing tricks with the cameras. So it was beyond the idea of like watching Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton doing silent films. It was more like cameras. Like there's a movie called I Am Cuba. It's like the camera,
that's
right?
Amazing, yes.
Yeah. So the camera goes at a party, goes into the water because someone jumps in the water of the pool, comes back out of the pool, and then to string across like windows. It's because the camera wasn't contained to the need to capture audio. Right? But then what happened is like in the early 20th century, you had all movies that basically people were like, hey, we want to hear them talk. And that's when the talkies came. But what the talkies became is that the camera had to be more static.
Right.
So they capture audio. So already at that point, it was already kind of limiting the evolution of what cinema was going to be with the camera. But then what happened is that like every business, although we as filmmakers call it art, there is the commerce, meaning that it is a commodity. We can't just tell stories, and make a living. You have to make stories that are entertaining enough for people to give them their money, right?
Right.
So this has happened. It happened, cinema, they're making big studio movies. And at the turn of like, the 60s and 70s, you had Roger Corman who was making all these B movies for cheap.
Right.
Super cheap. With like 16 millimeter cameras. And what happened was they were trying to making movies that were counteractive to like the Towering Inferno featuring Steve McQueen. Like these really big blockbuster movies that were kind of corny.
Yeah.
But they were spectacle.
They were.
But then the counter was 5 Easy Pieces, Easy Rider, Paris, Texas. You started having all these movies
like
come out.
Like true independence.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying is that it was the Renaissance, right? 60s, 70s, a counter movement. That's what's so great about this time right now is that there is going to be a counter movement because right now we're in an industry where COVID kind of shut down. Well, Netflix started, right? And we get all the DVDs. Is that we get Netflix in the mail. It's like sending DVDs to us. And so all of a sudden you're like, I could have just skipped film school. I could have skipped film school and did what Tarantino did, which is like, I'm not going to go to film school. I'm going to learn everything about cinema, but I watch movies.
Right.
And then what happened was people realized, I don't have to go to the theater. Even though exhibition distribution has always been the thing. Exhibition. Showing movies in movie theaters for people to experience it.
Exactly.
And then we went away from that with home videos. And then we realized, I don't have to go to the movies. I can watch it at home.
And that kind of really hurt the theater in some ways.
It hurt the theater, but it didn't hurt the distributors because they made a ton of money. They realized, we'll only make this much. It's about the pie, right?
Yeah.
You can make this much in exhibition, but the distribution is not only home video, but the international distribution. So that's when it happened is you started getting into the time where
markets and all that.
Exactly. You started having all the movies that were huge. Marvel, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Because the idea was like, okay.
All the franchises are the ones they were trying to push.
Yes. And so the idea is like, Jen, I'm a producer. Okay. I'm going to fund your film that's a beautiful independent film for $3 million. Okay, cool. Nice. That's not very much.
No.
Then we spent $1 million for print and advertising, P&A. That's $4 million. How much did we make? We made $10 million. Okay, so we spent 3 years working on this picture. We spent 5, whatever the numbers, we make 6. That's not worth their time.
No.
Studios are like, how about we spend $200 million? Let's do the math. Spend $200 million on a project. We have all these stars in it. Okay. We spend $50 million on print and advertising. That's $250 million. But they know once it goes to distribution and it goes international, they're going to make $2 billion. So is it worth making $5 million on an indie film, or we put all our eggs in this one basket and make $1 billion?
They're going to take the big one.
Correct. And then with streamers, it made it even different because then now it's the tech companies who are distributing.
But the thing is with that one, like, it hurts a little more because they're constantly just shelling out content, but half the time either getting rid of good content and putting up really old content.
Well, the thing is, it's about the whole point is like we have to pay a subscription.
Right.
And the only reason I'm going to pay you a subscription every month is because your library, what is available, is ginormous,
right.
Good or bad.
Okay.
And so that's the thing is that they only produce content to fill the streamer. But the idea is like there used to be a big pie. Everybody could get a little piece of the pie.
No, that pie is not really.
It's not a pie. Now it's the filmmakers make the movie. They buy it from you, and it's over. They own it.
Right. I think there's one person I know that had a movie up in Netflix for a little bit. I don't know what happened to it, but I don't know if it's still up there. But it didn't really do too much because they were limited in what they could how they could promote it from.
And that's the other thing is that streamers don't spend time on promoting.
No, and the thing is that hurts.
It gets away from the whole model. I mean, that's what television was, right? It's the idea that we have a TV show. It's featuring Carol Burnett. But it's really brought to you by Clorox. So Clorox is paying the
It was all the AdSense. Exactly,
but the idea is like the ad money that the studio the studio is making money because they get money from advertisers for television. But the idea is that that's why you put marketing in. You put marketing money into advertise things so that people come and the sponsors are happy. But with streamers, like, it's just a different model. You don't have to cut all this because I think I'm not saying much very interesting.
Oh, no, it's really interesting.
It's not interesting. I think what's really super interesting to me?
What?
Is that the pendulum will swing.
It always does.
I want to record this because I think it's really important is that if you watch enough patterns in nature, it's always bound to repeat where it's like, here's the pendulum and swings. So the idea of the season of 5 easy pieces,
it's going to come back.
It's coming back. So the idea is that what will happen is that people just go, I'm tired. Just end all the subscriptions.
And that's what's happening right now if you think about it.
It's already happening.
It is happening already. I kind of cut back on my subscriptions on my streaming.
Yeah, because you see the value. It's like, oh, I have a couple shows I like, but like most of it is not very good.
No.
And then it just comes down to the fact that the only way to change the content is for us not to subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I thought post-COVID that, we just got so convenient with being inside of our homes and watching by ourselves. Right. But the thing that's missing is that there's nothing like the community of sitting in the dark, not just with myself, but other people watching it. Mm-hmm. Because when we all laugh at the same time and we all cry at the same time, there's a connection. There's a connection of humanity. And that's the thing that I think will happen is that eventually there's going to be a pivot where people are like, you know what? I don't want to go watch it at home anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to be part of something that's communal. I want to go watch it. And that's where I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be a revolution or renaissance where people start making movies for nothing, but in the sense that nothing meaning like not for 100 million, but low enough that they basically can create a body of content that leads to a roadshow. Meaning like if you had an independent studio where it's like I was telling you today, like if someone gave me 20 million, I wouldn't make one movie.
Right.
I'd make 10 movies for 2 million. And then all of a sudden I have a slate of 10 movies featuring 10 new voices and a bunch of new actors. And then they become so, they're done in such a cohesive way that now you have a travel roadshow that you'll be able to take it city to city.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be enough theaters to, exhibit it.
No, that is true. I think that is beginning to happen now at this moment in time as we're talking. Like, because, the studio system's broke. We all know that already.
Yeah.
And a lot of independents like you and I and so many others out there, we're finding other avenues to create and to show our work to whoever wants to watch it or whoever is willing to watch it. Mm-hmm. And it's that forum that's really just keeping us going all the time. So we don't necessarily need as much as we want the support of certain higher echelons of I don't know, financiality. No, that's not a word.
Well, just having the financial backing, right?
Yeah, and so, no, it's the independent artist is making a big comeback.
I don't know if you saw the shift, but like, I mean, I came in the industry because I started as an actor, playwright in college, undergraduate, and then I tried to audition in Los Angeles, and it was pretty terrible, the scripts that I read, obviously not having an agent and such. That was like, I want to go get an MFA in writing and directing. Why? Is it because I can write my own stories, and I could, make films of my own people, my friends and stuff. But then, as you can see over the last years, like leaving MGM Studios, I really felt like I was developing television series. I developed and produced a feature film, and it was so empty because I realized like, none of this stuff is real. It's such a facade. It's not even interesting. The most thing that became interesting is like going back to the roots when I started when I was 25 is making documentaries. Because I felt like the most stranger than fiction stories is real life.
Right.
Way more than a writer can fantasize. It's happening right now.
And similar to what I sort of experienced as well. It's like I'm going back to, giving a voice to the voiceless, really. Because I have my own voice, but then I realized my voice is, there's so much I can do with it, but also being in a system where it's like they're not going to really help you as much because you're nobody. I realized that, the best I can do is help give others a voice, helping their stories get out there more than me.
Yeah, giving voice to the voiceless, right? I mean, that's a big theme of what we do, and it doesn't mean that people don't have a voice. It means that they don't have a outlet to tell their story. And that's where us as filmmakers, I've been on crews where, there's 30 people on set. That's ridiculous. There's not that many people needed to tell a story unless you're doing Marvel movies, I suppose. But the idea is like less crew, more intimacy. And so what happens is you start telling stories of, I wouldn't say ordinary people because they're extraordinary, but telling the story and the journey of the people is just so much more fulfilling, but just more like reveals the truth of life. And I think that's, at the end of the day, as a storyteller, although I want to write and direct pictures and all those things, I think it comes down to like, what do I seek? I see truth.
Right.
Music, painting, film, whatever the expression is, dance. If it has truth, I'm gonna go after it.
And as you should.
Well, what else are we gonna do?
Exactly.
I just think it's unreal that we're able to make a living doing something that I absolutely would do for free. I don't want to say that because I think there's probably clients that be like, "Oh, really? You work for free?" It's like,
not totally.
Not what I'm saying, but I'm saying
passion
a lot
projects.
A lot of people say, "Oh, it's a passion project." I said, "Yeah, I guess," but I'm more like I only work on things that I'm passionate about. Most of the things.
True. Not
true in the sense like, yeah, I have to work on stuff I don't want to work on, but I'm passionate about the craft, and I think the idea is like, I'm never happier than when I'm on set with you and the crew. It's my favorite time. It's like Voltron, it's really like, it's only possible. The greatness of the animal, the creature that is us, the squad, is only as powerful as all the people that make it, right? All the cats.
And the thing is like,
Voltron.
The first time I ever worked with all of us in our squad, I felt the glue that was going to stick us together. If that was hypothetically.
Who was the glue? What do you mean the glue? You just saw the glue?
I saw the glue and we it was all going to connect.
Okay, I thought you were saying I was the glue, like the crazy glue that put us all together, but.
Partially you were.
I am a little bit crazy. Yeah. I'm okay with it though.
But and it's worked out for all of us for the last however many years.
Many years.
And look, and the thing is, it's rare, especially in an industry, that you find collaborators that you truly do enjoy working with.
And love. I love each of you. And it's, again, like I told you, like putting crews together, it's by design. Mm-hmm. I've worked with enough difficult people. I worked with enough talented people that were just kind of not easy to work with. And you have to ask yourself, like, again, you want to hire the best, but they're difficult, or it's more like what makes it the best is that people are working in collaboration.
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, like, even when I was working in post, those were some of the best people I've ever worked with in post. I still communicate with them too because they were really very much well, I want to say like my mentors almost.
Sure.
Because they taught me everything I needed to know in terms of post-production.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things where you kind of like put that energy in, kind of like bring in the people that you feel like will benefit you, but also will benefit them as well.
I mean, I think you're saying something very important is that I think everybody has to be a professional or work in certain aspects. So it's whether you work in sports or work in a hospital or you work in film or work in a restaurant. All of these required positions, whether you're a chef, a director, a surgeon, you have to work with other people. I mean,
right.
If you want to be so that you can get through this world by yourself, like a lone wolf, then yeah, play golf, play tennis. But even then, I think we have to understand, like, we are only as good as a collective. We really have to work together to do what we do.
Exactly.
And you know that with crews, like, I probably seem like the least, like, I'm on set, I'm pretty chill, right? But I think it's also like, but I'm fully aware of everything because I do a lot of pre-production and make sure that it can be chill when we get on set. Because one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, you do, is that if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. Part of what we do is, as producers, is completely troubleshooting.
Right.
But I think the idea is that we have to be comfortable with the chaos.
Exactly.
I mean, things are, it's not that we're pessimistic it's going to go wrong. It's like, no, I didn't know that we were going to shoot it. The calendars, the weather report says sunny.
Right.
And now it's starting to sprinkle. It's like, well, what do we do?
Exactly.
We're going to rewrite the scene? So what are we going to do? It's like,
just go with it.
That part is fun because then it becomes about, I think that's the real artistry, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the other stuff is execution, but the real artistry is like, hey,
little problem solvings that we have to do.
Yeah, because then
set.
Because it's only a problem because it goes against the expectation of how this was supposed to be shot. Versus the fact that you show up and the magic in the bottle is you did all this preparation for something to occur that was unexpected.
Right.
But that's actually the truth.
For me though, when I've produced all the projects I was doing, I didn't necessarily prepare for things that was gonna go right. I always, in some contingency, prepared for a little bit that's going to go wrong because I knew something was going to go wrong, no matter what.
Or and again, it's like we can frame it as wrong or the thing that
or unexpected.
The unexpected is going to bring us to the moment of what we were really after, right?
Yeah,
it's so crazy. It's really crazy. Can I give you an example?
Sure.
One of my favorite filmmakers is John Cassavetes. He was really the forefather of independent cinema. If you go real back, you can go all the way back to John Sayles, and before John Sayles was, you have Jim Jarmusch, and you have all, but behind that was John Cassavetes. And most people know Cassavetes like the husband in Rosemary's Baby, Polanski film, but he was a fantastic director. And one of his films he did was called Women Under the Influence, and this film starred Jenna Rollins as a woman who's a little mentally unstable, and Peter Falk plays her husband. And there's a scene where someone dies, and they were saying in LA it never rains. And so Cassavetes was just like, there's this scene we're shooting tomorrow where they're all returning to the house after a funeral. And they're walking down the street, they're basically going to walk, get out the cars, walk up the street, go inside the house, cut. That's going to be the wide shot. Well, the day the shoot came, and sure enough, it started to rain. And so what did Cassavetes do? He's like, start rolling camera. Because all of a sudden you had them walk into the house, but they're pulling up their coats to cover their heads from the rain. And it really felt like the rain was reflecting the moment of sorrow that the characters were feeling. They didn't plan for that. They couldn't plan for rain. If you want rain on set, you're going to have to pay to have fake rain, right?
Right.
But that's the magic of filmmaking. Is it being like, hey, we don't have enough money to create this emotion. Well, let's just shoot it. And then all of a sudden, I call them the cinema gods come in and they make it rain. And although that was shot in the 70s and everyone, mostly in those films has passed away, that shot with the rain lasts forever. That's why I'm obsessed. It's unbelievable. There are so many stories like this.
Cinema is unpredictable in terms of how it's made. And some of the time it's the most unexpected moment could be one of the greatest.
Yeah. Don't you think that the film, sometimes people say that the film is actually just a record of the movie that was made? Like it becomes a record of like, I mean, I watched films that I've done, and it's like I look at them and like, I remember that day.
Oh yeah, no,
I remember.
I've looked at, photos of the, shorts that I've done, and it's like I remember every single detail of how the shoot went.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much I can still like recount. And it's like, I had an amazing crew, got these amazing locations, got actors that were pretty awesome as well. So it's like I wouldn't trade that memory for anything.
No, I mean, I think, I look back at whatever career that someone would deem me having. It's definitely all the steps, all the magic moments of leading up to it, then the actual film. So I think everything we end up making falls a little short of a lot short of what we envision. Mm. But I mean, look, I talk about cinema a lot, especially in front of my children, because I like art. If you don't teach young people how to experience and enjoy the art, then the art will die. Mm, that's my great fear of the new generation that, let's be honest, our generation, maybe the generation after us, have this kind of delightful memories of the Oscars or those things where movie stars are movie stars. But to be honest, I look at, our babies in the next two generations, they're not so much interested because they like short form.
Right.
But also I think they think it's the cinema stuff they've watched is pretty antiquated and pretty boring. Mm. And so my fear, this idea is like the revolution will come for cinema when the young people realize like, yo, we have stories to tell.
Right.
And we're the ones we've been waiting for.
To add on to that, I think, and I have a feeling that long form is going to make a big comeback. And it's slowly creeping up to that point.
And now television, right? They were able to figure out like instead of telling a story in 2 hours, we could tell it over 12, 15 hours episodes, right? Mm-hmm. Are you doing long form in terms of movies?
Mm-hmm. Long form also like, how everything is short form content, but long form in terms of like even the YouTube videos, they're coming back in terms of a resurgence of people actually sitting down and kind of like watching it, even if it's just for background noise. People still enjoy long form content, and it's going to come back to that point.
This episode is brought to you by YouTube. My son is a big YouTube fan, and I only give him a hard time about watching it all because he hasn't learned to monetize it yet. I will let you watch as much YouTube as you want when it starts paying for the electricity used to watch YouTube.
The energy going into YouTube.
I sound like one of those dads that cares about electricity. My dad was always yelling at us, turn the lights off.
Well, my mom too. Like for a certain, when I was younger, a certain hour, I gotta go to bed.
Imagine now in modern days, like turn off the interweb. It's too expensive for that Wi-Fi.
I still can't even imagine
Wi-Fi.
how you and
Wi-Fi.
I survived without internet. We did.
We had I was just thinking that we used the Thomas Guide and
I still have a
collect
Thomas
calls.
Guide,
Dude, you gotta get rid of that thing.
It's a relic.
That paper probably has asbestos on it now.
No, it's in my bookshelf.
It's a collectible.
I use that thing so much when I was producing productions back like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Did you find out that you live on... Your house is on page 300 square W2.
Exactly.
Everyone right now is going like, I have no idea what he's talking about. And then the other groups go like, yeah, we remember.
This is the great grandfather of Google Maps.
Oh my God. Great grandfather?
Is it? No,
yeah,
what
great ancestor. Yeah, it's pretty old.
Ancestor of Google Maps.
It was analog. What do you mean it's paper?
You know that thing that you're holding? That's paper.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. I mean, even now, it's like...
the thing is that I have a MFA from Art Center. And I always had this attitude like, oh, those that can't do teach. And those that can teach PE. But I think it's more like, no, I would love to teach cinema. Mainly because of that that I would be able to talk to young filmmakers or storytellers, or those young people that are curious about who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to be like, look, you can express who you are through music, through paint, through dance, through film. And if you're going to do it through film, let me show you the fast ways to do it versus the idea that I think this industry has come to this idea that
you need a big budget.
Or does people think that what their skills are proprietary?
Oh yeah. Don't gatekeep.
What I know and what you know, I want to give away the secret right now. It's not that hard. It's hard technically. Technically, it could be hard. But the hardest part is storytelling.
Right.
Meaning, like, make a good story. And so for me, I think it's more about, I just want to sometimes blow the cover off and be like, look, these people that you think are behind the studio wall, they're just, they're keeping all their secrets because they think, they're going to lose their juice.
Yeah.
But the idea is, like, all the juice is in the hands of the people.
It is. And the thing is, in one way or another, someone's going to figure it out without having to teach them.
I hope so.
And it's always been like that, too. It's like, we always figure out how to do something when we initially didn't know how to do it.
What else you want to know about cinema? Maybe you need to have like a special cinema series with me because
this is more than one conversation we're going to be having because there's so many different avenues we can actually go on, and I have a list. There's a list.
I think it's just so interesting, just personally from a standpoint of career. Most people care about the career part. I think it's more about my creative growth as a person. That the older I get, the longer I'm in the craft of storytelling, I've become more loose about what I used to think was most important. Some people don't like when I shoot the camera's a little too shaky. It's like, yeah, that's only because there's a visual language that people got used to.
Right.
I just think with podcasts and I think with other things, there's ways to expand the story. And that's what I'm most excited about. Because I think that the next two generations they've been conditioned with the iPads in their hands as children. So in a way, they're super plugged in. I'm more curious what happens when they plug out. They actually go counterculture and they unplug from it all and go out into nature and figure out like, oh, we have a 35 millimeter camera. Let's take photos. And
the funny thing is like, even with photography, there's a resurgence in film in the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
And which is amazing because people are finding out like, oh my gosh, this digital can only do so much of instant gratification. But with film, you have that anticipation of not knowing if your shot came out.
Look, I mean, I'm a great admirer of your photos because you do shoot film and you shoot digital. But you've been shooting photos for years. You've been since we're in school, you're shooting photos. So I think it's super interesting because I think the fact that you play with mediums, you understand that whatever medium you shoot, you're going to have a different output. Right? And I think that's what's super good about your curiosity, like having Lomo cameras and all those things, because although the point a camera and click element is the same with all cameras, the output is not the same.
Right.
The image is not the same.
Right.
And so I think that's the part that, even this podcast starting was, I bought this podcast gear a year ago and you're like, hey man, let's do this thing. And I'm like, I'm too premeditated. I wanted to really frame what I wanted to do with podcasts, like be really intentional. But I think what I got from you is this idea of collaboration of like,
and spontaneity.
Yeah, because this is your podcast. This is your podcast. Me, I'm just a guest on it. So it's your world. But I think it's opened me up to the idea of like just making space to push record has opened opportunities to say like it doesn't matter so much about what I say.
Right.
But sometimes it's more important about what we're sharing because what it does, it can open up a people's perspective of things.
Right. Exactly. No, that's amazing.
I said a lot on this podcast.
And it's welcomed. Very much welcome.
I don't know, man. I kind of went a little crazy.
You know what? It's not crazy than me. And I don't think it is going to be crazy for everybody else.
I mean, I really just want to talk about, not to get braggadocious, but I studied Korean cinema, German New Wave, French New Wave. Western. I've studied, I've taken classes on Robert Bresson, Stanley Kubrick, Truffaut. Like, I basically have seen all their filmography, right? Mm-hmm. So it's more that I have probably thousands of hours of movies in my mind. It's a complete waste unless I share.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's a lot.
Share the wealth, which is great. And then this is going to be more than one topic conversation that we're going to
maybe
get into. No, maybe it is.
I mean, I just want, what gets interesting is when you can start talking about genre. You could talk about directors. You could talk about
we'll get more in depth
eras.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. How do you want to wrap this?
Top 3 movies.
My top 3 movies? Oof.
I know, put you on the spot there. Mm-hmm.
No, there's just so many beautiful movies that it just becomes like...
At the moment. Let's just say like you're in the mood at the moment.
At the moment. See, then I get all these tough questions like, does it be genre? Or it could be anything.
Anything.
Does it see in the theater or on TV?
Either.
Does it have to be narrative or nonfiction?
Could be both.
Oof.
The door is wide open.
Can I just name them and not have any explanation of them?
It could just be titled in any order. No particular order.
Okay, one of my favorite films, and actually they're going to be showing it here in Costa Mesa, California. They're doing a screening in April. Is Francois Truffaut's 400 Blows. It was the first film in graduate school where I was like, this is the kind of film I want to make. This film specifically about this, there's an element of a boy finding about the truth about his mom, but the idea is, it's 50s, 60s in France, and, he gets in trouble, but it's more like he's searching for truth about himself, but there's this, this kind of redemption about it. And I think the last frame where he's kind of running away from a boarding school and the boy stares into the camera and freezes, that film stitched real hard on my soul. I still kind of, I'm looking forward to taking my kids to see it for the first time.
Ooh, yeah, that's gonna be fun.
How about you?
Mine, I actually recently rewatched this again. It's Lovers on the Ninth Bridge, Leos Carax.
Wow.
It's a French film from I think 1990, around there, with Juliette Binoche.
So our first 2 picks are French.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And it's one of those things I remember watching it and I was like, it's very non-conforming to what cinema is. Wow. And I really enjoyed it a lot, and especially like one location, a story between 2 people, and that's it.
And I think some of the early stuff that you made was kind of similar, right? Mm-hmm. You have similar characters, similar location.
Yeah.
Okay, I see the influence. Yeah. Las películas de Francia es magníficas.
Yeah, and then another one for me would be 2 for the Road. Audrey Hepburn and Albert Finney.
Yeah.
I think it's one of her most underrated films.
Yeah. Do you like Audrey Hepburn?
I love Audrey Hepburn.
What's your favorite Audrey Hepburn movie?
2 for the Road.
Oh.
People say Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is fine.
That's not Roman Holiday, baby.
Roman Holiday is good too.
Gregory
Mine
Peck.
would be 2 for the Road. Second would be Roman Holiday.
So good.
It is.
My second pick is Koyaanisqatsi. This experimental film of the 80s is about nature. It's about evolution. There's no dialogue in it. Nice. And it's just imagery of the world from creation to now and global warming and such, but it's composed by the great Philip Glass. And it's really a visual experience because although it's a movie, the music is the driving character in the movie. Mm-hmm. And so it really plays with this idea of form. Koyaanisqatsi.
Ooh.
Koyaanisqatsi.
I feel like I need to rewatch a lot of the movies I've watched before because it almost feel like I'm missing out.
Well, you're a different person.
Yeah.
When you watch it.
You have a different perspective now that we're, I say older.
Gosh, that's a really interesting point. Because if you watch a movie when you're a kid, for example, I think of my son when I watched the movie Home Alone. So Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, we all know that movie, right? So when I first saw it, I was 12 years old. I could only identify with Kevin.
Mm.
And then I watch it now in my 40s, and I can only relate with the parents because I realize, gosh, I can't even imagine leaving my son back home by himself. Yeah, I don't think he's going to catch Joe Pesci and such. But the idea is that movies do change as you get older because you start to identify with different characters. Or it's your third pick?
My third pick, Pickpocket, Bresson.
Oh, such a good film.
I remember watching it in the cinema class when I was younger, and I bought the DVD, and I kept watching it over and over. I'm like, it's so organic.
And the movie, I mean, this again, I'm gonna nerd out, but what's cool about Robert Bresson is that he's a French filmmaker. You get a lot of French films in there.
I do.
He worked exclusively with non-actors.
Funny thing is also, 2 Foot of Road takes place in France.
You have a little obsession with France, I see.
I kind of do, but not in a sense where it's like, it's just that I think that because film did technically start in France, but a lot of the
Lumiere brothers.
Yes. Yep. I think that a lot of the inspirations come from that because it kind of like starts from there and spread out.
No, absolutely. I want to go for a modern film. I'm only picking this one of my favorite films because when I fly overseas, the flights are 12 hours usually, and so I typically can fit in like 3 or 4 films, and then I'm there. Martin Scorsese is one of my favorite directors, and you look at Raging Bull, Games in New York, Taxi Driver. You can go on and on and on. I love The Departed.
That was a good one.
I'm sorry, but like Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Sheen, Matt Damon. It really, it just keeps going on and on and on. But it's so tightly crafted. Probably makes you sound like a serial killer that I would watch a gangster movie. I love gangster movies. That's the other.
No, gangster movies are good.
But I know, it's weird. Departed, I love it. It's one of those things.
And enjoy it. Yeah.
I do. Even though the same people die every time I watch it, I'm always very impressed by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
He's really good in that movie.
Oh, yeah, he wasn't. Now I keep forgetting that.
He's the bad boy.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin's in that movie.
It's basically everyone who's who in that one, almost.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, well, we did it. Good job. This is what happens when Ian starts to talk about things that...
The thing is, you and I have so many experiences from our years of working in the industry, in and out of it. It's that we have a shared experience, not necessarily directly, but also indirectly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think what's crazy is that we were talking about this morning. Like, I really struggle with the idea that in my 20s, when I got my degree and I was a filmmaker, I was like, dude, I want to make my first film by this. Because you saw young filmmakers making movies. We all grew up with Wes Anderson and being like, dude, this guy is just, he's the greatest because he just makes movies and movies and movies. That by the time I turned 44, I thought I was going to have made 10 movies. But the idea is like, although I haven't made the movies that I have wanted to make yet, we are still telling stories. And I think that's the most important thing.
It is. And we still are. We are going to continue it as long as we're able to.
That's right.
Well, that is it for this episode of Small Talk Tuesday.
This episode was brought to you by Kodak. Keep shooting film.
Are they even still around?
Yeah.
Last I heard, you
have a Kodak camera.
I do, but
you pulled it out on set the other day.
I did.
Well, then why are you acting like Kodak doesn't exist?
Well, they don't really make film per se in terms of film cameras anymore.
True.
They're kind of like on a different avenue.
True.
So
bring it back.
But yeah, tune into us. Watch us on YouTube. Find us all the way anywhere else you see your podcast, hear it. But yeah, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Keep shooting. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.